In this video, I'd like to explain an interesting sample application which I found on Flutter samples on the GitHub, and this one is a provider shopper. According to this documentation, this sample application shows a state management approach using the provider package. I reviewed and it's really excellent. And then this is the application for this demo explanation. Yes, so let's review how it works in practice. So coming back to Visual Studio, let me just explain a couple of important aspects. And it has the project has two model classes. One of the card model, and the card model is the only one which has a change notifier. The card model has a list of items, and an item is from the catalog. This is the item with an ID, a string, and a color. And the catalog provides the list an infinite number of elements. It's a very nifty solution, how it is mimicking an infinite number of catalogs. So the cart contains a list of integers. Actually, these integers are the IDs of these items. Yes, so this is the item doesn't, the cart itself doesn't have a list of the items, neither a reference, just an identifier, a list of integers. And then another interesting part of this, and in the main Dart, it defines two providers, the catalog model and the cart model. And interestingly, the catalog model, as explained earlier, this is not a descendant of the change notifier. So the catalog model is immutable, it never changes, so therefore it doesn't ever trigger a change notification. But the cart model, whenever an item is added, then it calls the notify listeners. Here, for debugging and monitoring the experimenting, I added a print statement to see what happening when this function is called. And then back to the main Dart. So it has two providers. So the first provider doesn't even implement the change notifier, but the cart model does. And here is a nifty solution. This change notifier proxy provider says that this card model requires the catalog model. That is, here is the context, and this is the builder. So whenever a cart model is created, this machinery provides the catalog model. It's a default constructor, and this catalog model, this object is going to be added to this cart model. So this way a cart model object will have a catalog model immediately, and the previous cart is included here when defined. Yep, and then the user interface, the catalog part is what is interesting. There is a sliver child builder delegate which creates list of items as possible, as many as it can, to fill the screen, right? And then this list item, this is here, list item, its builder, it's dependent on the catalog model. So therefore this object, this list item, doesn't depend on the cart, the change notifier, just an immutable object, catalog model. And then the add button, however, it depends on the cart model. Very interesting and nifty thing that this is the only syntax which is used here. The cart provider of cart model and the context, that's all. And I've already learned that there is a listener possibility here, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, listen, and by default this listen is true. You can switch it off, so when you call this way, this listen is true. That is, in that case, this component is rebuilt whenever the cart model object emits change notification. And then, for the sake of monitoring, I add my print message, add button for cart item, item ID, and the item ID is actually coming from here, because this is a parameter, so every add button has a reference to an item is rebuilt. Why it is rebuilt? Because whenever the user presses the button, first it calls the add, and then this is the most interesting, whenever the cart item contains this item, the items, then depends on it displays either an icon or the add button text. This is a flat button. So that's how the state is changed for this button. So let's go and then experiment to see how it behaves. Let's restart it. There you go. Okay, so this is the application started, and the application, the add button was invoked 10 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is visible, but because of some reason it created 3 more. So 10 buttons are created right away. And when I click the first add button here. You see, let's check out what's going to happen. Item 0 added, and then right away it updated all of the 10 buttons. Interestingly, not only the one button, the first one, but it also updated all. The reason is that because all of these buttons depend on the cart model, so that single object, yes, so that's the reason all of the buttons are updated, because there is no specific object which just triggers the single line in this list. So that's my experience, and at the same time I also was experimenting, and then the rest of the screen is not updated, only these buttons, not the entire list and not the entire items, only the 10 instances of these add buttons are updated, like so. So my next experiment to rework this example, to use the plain old style set state to show a a tiny bit more efficient implementation, to find out if it's possible just to modify, to rebuild the button itself which was actually clicked. So stay tuned.